In June 2017, a woman's piercing scream shattered the peace of a reptile haven in Missouri. This was Rennick Reptiles, a breeding facility that housed more than 3,000 rare snakes. On the floor lay the facility's owner, Ben Rennick, surrounded by a pool of blood. His wife, Lindley Rennick, who discovered him, screamed and immediately called the police. She told the responding officers that one of the facility's snakes might have attacked him. But when police examined Ben's body, they were all shocked, and soon this case would become one of the most complex and disturbing in Missouri's history. Ben was a rising star in the reptile world. His business, Rennick Reptiles, wasn't just a breeding facility. It was an international enterprise combining artistic vision with expertise. Fascinated by snakes since childhood, he had turned his hobby into a successful business. The snake farm specialized in rare breeds and became famous for specimens with unique genetic combinations and color patterns. His snakes were exported worldwide, and Ben became a respected expert in the industry. In 2017, Ben was in negotiations to sell part of his snake collection for $1.2 million. According to his brother Sam, Ben was working not just for business success, but for his family's future. Ben and Lindley had first met as teenagers but reconnected in 2011 when their romantic relationship began. They moved in together after a year and had a small wedding in 2014. Ben loved Lindley's son from a previous relationship as his own, and the following year, the couple had a daughter together. Lindley, a former massage therapist, opened Essentia Spa in Columbia in 2016, her dream business, with Ben's full support. On the surface, they appeared to be a couple with successful businesses and a happy family, but hidden beneath their relationship was a dark shadow no one suspected. On June 8, 2017, at approximately 5:30 p.m., Lindley entered Rennick Reptiles, which was adjacent to their home, after picking up the children from school. She discovered Ben lying face down, motionless, and called the police. She announced that her husband was dead, mentioning the possibility that one of the facility's snakes had attacked him, but her report was somewhat vague. She definitively stated that her husband was dead, which was unusual. Typically, when a loved one is found collapsed, people say, "They're not breathing," or "They're unconscious." But Lindley was certain of Ben's death before medical personnel even arrived. Additionally, while uncertain about the cause of death, she suggested a snake might have attacked him. She hadn't witnessed how her husband died, yet she seemed to guide police toward thinking it was a snake attack. She also contacted Ben's brother Sam, asking him to come to the scene quickly. When emergency medical teams and police arrived, they faced a highly unusual situation they had never encountered before, having to enter a facility with thousands of snakes. Officers moved cautiously with weapons ready in case dangerous snakes were loose in the facility. The officers began to carefully examine Ben's body. First, they thoroughly investigated the area around Ben, during which important evidence was discovered: a 9mm shell casing on a shelf above Ben's head. This discovery completely changed the direction of the investigation. The officers carefully turned over Ben's body for detailed examination and identified multiple gunshot wounds across his back. Further investigation revealed that Ben had been shot 8 times, with one shot fired at close range, and all bullets had penetrated his back, suggesting Ben likely never saw his attacker. Additionally, with no signs of forced entry at the scene, the perpetrator was likely someone Ben knew. Police immediately sealed off the scene and summoned the forensic team. The entire snake breeding facility was designated a crime scene to avoid contaminating potential evidence, and investigators began carefully collecting evidence among 3,000 snakes. At the scene, Lindley was extremely distraught, and Sam, who rushed over after being contacted, was also deeply shocked upon finding his brother's bloodied body. At this point, investigators asked the crucial question central to all cases: who would want Ben Rennick dead, and why? In the initial investigation of murder cases, police typically first investigate those closest to the victim. Ben's case was no exception. Investigators prioritized Ben's brother Sam and his wife Lindley as primary suspects. The day after the incident, Sam Rennick was summoned by investigators and questioned in detail about his relationship with Ben, any recent conflicts, and his whereabouts on the day of the incident. Sam expressed shock and grief over his brother's death and fully cooperated with the investigation. Lindley's testimony worked against Sam at this point. She claimed that Ben had planned to sell the family's 70-acre farm, which Sam strongly opposed. This farm had been inherited by Ben after their father, Frank Rennick, took his own life in 2012. Lindley stated that Sam had serious conflicts with Ben over this property issue. However, Sam provided a clear alibi that he was at work when the incident occurred. He took both a gunshot residue test and a polygraph test, passing both perfectly. His alibi was confirmed by his mobile phone records and testimony from workplace colleagues, and investigators completely excluded him as a suspect. The focus of the investigation then shifted to Lindley. Investigators discovered important facts while examining Ben and Lindley's financial situation. Lindley's spa business, though appearing successful on the surface, was experiencing serious financial problems. Employee salaries were being delayed, and evidence was found that Ben had become aware of this. Just hours before Ben was killed, he had sent Lindley a message indicating serious conflict over financial issues. Meanwhile, Ben's snake business was thriving. He was in negotiations to sell part of his rare snake collection for $1.2 million and had already received an initial payment of $200,000. Investigators discovered a significant motive here. With Ben's death, Lindley would inherit the benefits of this deal, along with life insurance and ownership of the family farm. The total amounted to millions of dollars, a powerful motive for the crime. Additionally, all of Lindley's actions raised suspicion among investigators. Shortly after Ben's death, she quickly sold the family farm, liquidated the spa business, and left Missouri. This wasn't all. 11 days after Ben's murder, Lindley made a surprising confession during her second interview with investigators. She admitted to having an affair with a man during her marriage. Investigators immediately checked this man's alibi and, finding no connection, excluded him as a suspect, but their investigation of Lindley continued. Soon after, more shocking facts emerged from the investigation of Ashley Shaw, a spa employee and close friend of Lindley's. Ashley testified that Lindley had been involved in affairs with multiple men. One man, Brandon Blackwell, was particularly important. Lindley had met him through a dating website, and it was revealed that she had been with Brandon during the very week Ben was murdered. 4 months after the incident, Lindley agreed to take a polygraph test. When asked, "Did you shoot Ben?" she answered, "No," but shockingly, the result came back as false. She continued to maintain her innocence, but investigators strongly suspected she was definitely involved in the crime and that there might be an accomplice. Despite intense pressure from investigators, Lindley continued to deny involvement in the crime. Moreover, because her gunshot residue test was negative and there was insufficient direct evidence, she couldn't be arrested, and the case remained unsolved for almost 3 years. In January 2020, a crucial turning point in the investigation arrived. Brandon Blackwell, who was in prison, decided to provide important information. He had maintained a relationship with Lindley even after Ben's murder, and even had a child with her. But eventually the relationship deteriorated, and Lindley obtained a restraining order against him. Brandon was incarcerated for violating this order. To reduce his charges, Blackwell revealed the shocking confession Lindley had made to him, that she had killed Ben, and not just in one attempt, but 2. According to his testimony, a few weeks before Ben was shot, Lindley and Ashley Shaw had planned to poison Ben. Lindley asked Ashley to get her strong painkillers, and Ashley provided about 15 Percocet prescription painkillers. Lindley crushed these drugs and mixed them into the protein shake Ben drank after working out. This drink contained a potentially lethal dose of narcotic painkillers, but Ben miraculously survived. Investigators also discovered another key figure in Lindley's call records, Michael Humphrey, her ex-boyfriend with a previous conviction for drug possession. Lindley had contacted Michael several times, including on the day Ben was killed. According to Blackwell's testimony, Lindley and Michael had formed a specific plan to kill Ben and went to the snake farm together. Michael had prepared gloves and a gun. However, after arriving at the scene, Michael suddenly changed his mind and handed the gun to Lindley, who then entered the facility and shot Ben multiple times. After the murder, the two left the scene, and Lindley later returned, pretending to discover the body for the first time, according to Blackwell's testimony. Based on this statement, on January 16, 2020, police arrested Lindley and Michael Humphrey and charged them with Ben Rennick's murder. The arrest after 3 years brought both shock and relief to Ben's family. Investigators determined that the motive was clear. With Ben's death, Lindley could obtain millions of dollars through life insurance, snake sale profits, and the inherited family farm, while also freely maintaining her extramarital relationships. In late 2021, Michael Humphrey was the first to stand trial. Prosecutors argued that he actively participated in the murder plan, while Humphrey's defense team claimed he had been deceived by Lindley, who had lured him to the murder scene. However, the jury found Humphrey guilty of first-degree murder, facing a life sentence. After the guilty verdict, Humphrey made a deal with prosecutors to reduce his sentence. He admitted providing the gun to Lindley and going to the scene with her. More importantly, he revealed the location of the murder weapon. Police found a 9mm handgun in his girlfriend's mother's attic, which was confirmed to be the weapon that killed Ben, serving as decisive evidence of Lindley and Michael's conspiracy. As a result, his charge was reduced from first-degree to second-degree murder. While the exact sentence wasn't disclosed, in Missouri, second-degree murder typically carries a minimum sentence of 10 to 30 years, and Humphrey would have the opportunity for parole consideration after serving a certain period. In December 2021, Lindley's trial began. Prosecutors claimed she shot Ben 8 times from behind and killed him. The defense countered that although Lindley had lied and committed adultery, she wasn't a murderer, arguing that Michael Humphrey had acted independently. The key witness in the trial was Ashley Shaw. She testified that Lindley initially said Humphrey shot Ben, but later confessed to killing Ben herself. Michael Humphrey also testified as a witness, stating he saw Lindley holding the gun down the hallway. In her defense, Lindley claimed her marriage to Ben was sometimes violent and that she had merely asked Michael for protection during the divorce process. She claimed Michael suddenly pulled out a gun and shot Ben, and she left the scene in shock. After 12 hours of deliberation, the jury found Lindley guilty of second-degree murder and armed criminal action, sentencing her to a total of 16 years. In the end, it wasn't one of the snakes Ben had raised his entire life that killed him, but rather the viper named wife he had held close to his heart.